grain of rice, a grain of rice is going to tip the scale. Just remember that, lads.
There's a small bit of a needle there.
Now, come on, Mayo, you've got to get Andy Moran into the game.
Our mission was to show that we're no longer the whipping boys of Munster.
Morning, folks. How you all doing? You're very welcome along to the Irish Examiner Hurling Show in partnership with Allianz for the National Leagues. We've been gone a while. We had an extended Christmas break. A few lads were asking me on Twitter that we had longer breaks than the TDs. So I just didn't answer. I just liked it. But I think, look, the reality is the real stuff starts this weekend. The pre-season is over. Well, not quite, obviously. Wexford and Galway playing that World Cup final to double up with their league game. But you're very welcome along, lads. Joined today as our special guest by Ken. How are things, Ken? Looking fit?
Great, Dalo. Long January into February now, so the year's going to fly. One league over. This league is coming, and then there's the Munster League round robin. So it's all leagues, but you eventually qualify for the big stuff.
That's it, Ken. And the two buckles, as usual. TJ, dry January?
Dry January, Dalo, yeah. Looked after himself very well. Pretty much, yeah. As I said, nothing too serious to report, but nice February coming up. Starting with this weekend. Marco's going to host me in Páirc Uí Chaoimh on Saturday, and we have a trip to the DRF on Sunday. And just
up before the DRF?
We're going up Sunday morning. Oh, no, up to the Dublin Racing Festival, not the DRF. And Monday, just talk of coursing on Monday. Myself and Marco would be newbies to the coursing now, Dalo. So you'll have to educate us there. Right?
Oh yeah, the Powerstown Park on the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. No, I'm on the box Sunday night, so I'll only get there on Monday. Whenever we're finished, be nice lively pod on Monday morning, I tell you. Be banging down the road. But Marco, how is things? Falling season for you now? It's obviously
Stepped in around now. I've two due, and the 3rd and the 4th of February, so they'll be moving to the falling unit fairly soon. I'll be relying on Mr. Hannity to deliver them safely. So we've minded them for the last 11 months, but they're all gone well. But, it's great to be back, I suppose. It's, when Dino was playing, we used to always say down here, like, there was no show like the Joe show. It now there's no show like the Dalo show. So I don't know what you're doing, but there seems to be a lot of people grabbing for you being back. But anyway, I suppose the darling of the pod is back. Right? Come here. The darling of the pod is back on Sunday. The split season is back. Davy Fitz is back. United are back. The Come On Racing Club is back. And come here to me. The stock markets are back as well. So, Dalo, it's been a great January.
Come here, whoever you caught into buying a pension scheme today, because we were looking at the short there, myself and TJ. They're in good place at the moment. The stocks and shares are high, and you're quite confident that policy you will sell them will be a winner.
Well, look, the last 6 months when the markets were on the floor, I kept saying to fellas, hold tough. This is like playing a match now, right? You're 3 or 4 points down at half time. You need to get into the dressing room, have a recess, have a review, and come back out in the second half and have another cut. And thankfully, the stock markets have repaid that advice, and we've had a great January, Dalo, and we're looking forward now to the rest of the season for the National League coming on. And of course, we have one little cup in the bag already. I was delighted that I met Ken below, and I can't believe we won it, but anyway, we got over the line, and Pat Ryan got his first bit of silverware. So we're up and running for the season, and really looking forward to the new season with all the new managers and the managerial shuffles, I suppose.
Yeah, you did the double mark in the Munster competitions between the Munster Hurling League and the McGrath Cup. Now, the footballers didn't start off great then on Saturday. That's the only thing in the real stuff.
No. And I'm led to believe that the footballers, they might have given the lessons off to the youngsters around down West Cork and stuff like that, but getting beat by Colm O'Rourke's crowd on Sunday wasn't good now, to be fair. And a game that they led for most of it. But in fairness to John Cleary, he's starting, I suppose he's trying to put his own stamp on it now, but it was nice to get a couple of cups, but I suppose it's like everything. you need to get the league. You need to get a good start in the league. And I think, listening to his interview, he's trying to maintain his status in Division 2, but they're kind of already on the back foot. And it could be something similar on Saturday night when the All-Ireland champions come to town. But we'll wait and see. We have a nice panel of players, and we're looking forward to the season.
That's good. That's good. Great to hear that. We're delighted always to hear that news about Cork. Now that we're on football, I'm going to digress a bit. Quickie on your take on the All-Ireland club football. I see this morning Kilmacud have kicked back with another objection back to the ruling that it must be replayed. I have a feeling at this stage it won't be replayed. It is one unholy mess, lads, isn't it? Just for an All-Ireland club final, I was there. I have to admit I did hit the road after the hurling final, which was enjoyable. I maybe felt we'll talk about it in a few minutes. Don't lie, you had a great chance, I thought, and a little bit more belief. I thought it might have actually caused the shock of a long time. But football, it's like how the GA, lads, just rules in the GA, isn't there? They just are crazy. How they just had to kick back to the Glen, Watty Graham's, to object first, instead of meeting on the Monday. I mean, I was involved in a similar thing in '98, and I'm not bitter about that really, because the 70 minutes weren't played, and we kind of quickly accepted we'd have to play again. Now, what we should have done probably is got out of Dublin that night and gone into hiding below in the West, no mobile phones in '98, and said we played in 2 weeks' time and got a bit of freshness back in the legs and things. But this was a whole pile different. It was breaking the rules, in fairness, but to let it roll on for the kind of 10 days now has it all over the place. And I think that's the two clubs, I can understand their stances, but I just think the GA met that Monday at 11 o'clock, came back and said, lads, this will have to be replayed. We'll give you an extra week, but Saturday week there's a replay. It would have solved the knot. And I think maybe, I'll never forget that night, let's say, on pint number 7 or 8, after the bit of grub, myself and Ali Baker in the bar. Most of the players in the bar, so were the Offaly lads. I'm not saying they were wrapped up or anything like that, them. And getting a tip on the shoulder from Mr. Lucknan saying, hi, bed, we could be out next week. And that was the end of it, So, but like this, Monday night, we saw the homecomings for both teams. And just obviously Crokes was Sunday night with the proximity. But it is an awful mess, isn't it? I have a feeling now the cup will be left back to Croke Park, presented to Watty Graham's, and they'll say, we don't want it, and...
That's going to take a month or so, with the reels and the jigs and all that. But when you're a manager on a sideline, as you well know, now people will say if there was 70 or 80,000 there, you can't get a message in or you can't get this out. But we well know that in the wide expanses of Croke Park, where there was a small crowd, every word is audible. So obviously, the officials have got to take responsibility at the end of the day. The subs didn't come off. But I don't know what you have as when you're on the side around like that. But when somebody comes off, you always give the shout, Dalo, come on. And someone's going on. Even though the fourth official is making the switch and you're given the list or whatever, you're shouting at some fella to come off because you're always conscious of the 16th man or someone saying, there's 16 men in the pitch or what's going on there? What are you up to, And it was all, I suppose, the more remarkable that the young fella that was supposed to be replaced was standing on the goal line. He was standing on the goal line with the goalkeeper, which made it more complicated. People talk about 17 players, but in actual fact, the 17th player was peripheral to the whole thing. He was out on the side and he had nothing to do with it. Because, any player could be in the sideline, as we well know in the World Cup. The subs are all in the sideline, right on the pitch. It was amazing to see the French lads and the Argentinian lads. They're all in the pitch shouting and roaring their team on or whatever. It was like a GA match, for instance. But it is a pity you're going back to 2010 again with the Meath Loud saga. The Joe Sheridan goal it wasn't. It's the same scenario again where the GA, abdicated responsibility. Left it to the two teams, and it's left a sour taste in the mouth because, as you well know, lads, from my end of it anyway, we lose a lot more than we win. But when you win the cup, it's all about receiving the cup on the day, celebrating with your parish on the night in the clubhouse, celebrating the following day or two, and then you move on. It's all over. That's the greatest kick of all time. Even the dinner dances when you get the medals, it's not the same. Even though you have a great whole night and a few pints, it's not the same. It's all about the night and the day after and being with your own. So I think the good has gone out of it from everybody's point of view. But as you mentioned, Dalo, it's going to take a month or 5 weeks. This is going to roll on, and eventually, I suppose the thing about it is that there's medals there. There's All Ireland medals to be given to some club, and sure at this stage it doesn't seem that any club will get these medals if there's no game played.
Yeah. TJ,
like, Dale, to be fair to the GA over the last number of years, it has like the whole substitute thing has moved in that it's now the responsibility of the fourth official who's helping the referee, and that seemed to be a good move, taking that paperwork away from a very busy game heading into the final quarter where the referee isn't having to write in names. Like we remember the old days where you'd come in with a slip of paper and give your name to the referee, right? So that seemed to be a very good move. My time on the line, like Ken said there, because like we were always nearly pulled by the fourth official to say that you had to do things structurally right. They needed to see the guy coming off before they released the guy in. The fourth official is wired up to the referee. You would be asking yourself here, like, what more can you do? Like, you don't want a game. Like, it could be up to 10 substitutions in the second half of the game. That's his responsibility. All the fourth official has to do here is quick word to referee, hold a second, Ken hasn't come off or whatever it is, right? It seems to be very straightforward. Like, what more you want to do? Like, I'm agreeing with Ken here. I don't think this game would be replayed. Like, then you're probably going back to things like, I'll speak from a Limerick point of view, and things like go back to the point in Croke Park that Hawkeye got wrong, or let's say the 65 against Kilkenny in 2019, or let's say the point in the 20 game last year. Like,
we have a lot of grievances.
We've a lot of grievances, like, and even the dog is agreeing with me there. And right, I'm just saying, Dalo, I hear the pieces about litigation and the rule book and the 16 men, with the scores. Like, where does all this fit in terms of a mistake and into the future? And if people create enough of a furore now, could there be more pressure on the GAA? So it's a tricky time. I probably was in surprised category that a replay was ordered. I thought it might have been trying to deal with. Like what Ken is saying there is, jeepers, and everything that happens in the GAA, like, nearly always dealt with on the day. Obviously, you can't have 16 players in the field, but it was a mistake, and I suppose there's learnings in it. But I wouldn't like to see a whole heap of changes now around substitutions and big stoppages. And, you know, as I said, the fourth official is there. He's got his job to do. Like, he doesn't. What annoys me sometimes at games, right, and I'm hard to annoy now, Dalo, as you know, right, is the fourth official is up and down the line trying to keep managers inside and outside of his box. You know what I mean? Do your job, man. Like, you only have 1 or 2 small things to do. Just get the job done properly, right? Just to digress a little, right, is I see the Mayor Forner role hasn't been reinstated, which for me, again, is a little disappointing. I think it adds to a game. I know that I like to see the goings on. You can nearly be telepathic, and, you know, when you see a guy having a poor 2 balls or 3 balls into the corner, you kind of saying, geez, the Mayor Forner will be down to him now in a second. Marco, you'll be getting the warning. 1 more ball now, Marco. Like, you kind of nearly miss that for the GAA, but that's just digressing a small bit. But for me,
one of the causes of that being getting rid of, like,
possibly. But what I'm saying is, like, we don't have to follow every other sport. Hurling has its own identity, and I thought that the Mayor Forna was part of the game, where the manager was using his Mayor Forna to get his messages out there on a given day. And I'm disappointed it's gone. I'd like to see it reinstated, but looks like it won't. But to go back to the fourth official, I thought it was a good move in terms of what they did and the way they've moved forward. This was a mistake. We all know in life mistakes happen. Jeez, I make them every single day myself. But look, it's a mess now.
Yeah, one of the most ironic things I thought about it in the few days after, when we all were up in the air, was, you know, what's superbly run, and it can be chaos at times, and you probably would have all played in it, is the Kilmacud 7-a-sides. And the sub coming on has to hand you the baton coming off. So it seems so simple, and it's a 7-a-side, and we all know how chaotic the sideline is, and various rumours about a blue helmet, and teams having more than 10 players there, and there might be a lad that mightn't be that well known, and he'd be used back over the years. You could tell tales about it anyway. But that simple system, and then we're in an Ireland Club final in injury time, and a lad remains on the field after a sub coming on. But look, we'll just have to stand back and watch that and see what happens. TJ, he's some man for a man that's not on Twitter, isn't he? 85,000 views of his Siri moment in the Woodlands before Christmas. I mean, like, you know, he doesn't do social media. We know he has the spies out there that feed him back everything. He gets little WhatsApps of everything that's on Twitter. But wasn't it unreal? When I look at the figures last night, after finishing up here, washing the few glasses and getting them out the door, begging Stephen Dillon not to have one more pint, and finishing the agenda here with a little glass of wine, just to get my structure in place. I had a quick look again. 84,800 views of Marco.
Unbelievable. It was the funniest.
And he's been sitting on a euro for a day, Leinster.
I don't know what you mean.
It was the funniest moment of 2022 for me. Like, it was like real time. Marco, for anybody who hasn't seen it, we were back in the Woodlands and Marco was going off on one of his usual rants about Cork, right? And he had his mobile phone and his inside pocket jacket, right? So anybody obviously who's got a phone and has Siri lined up to help them on their daily chores, right? Obviously one of the buttons got hit, right? And when he was full midstream, Siri comes out to say, "I do not know what you mean," which is regular. Which is regular enough from us, you know what I mean? But it was just it wasn't a setup, but it was.
And our listeners, I led.
It was incredibly funny.
It was.
It's one of those moments.
I would have thought the game was done and dusted because of the experience that Limerick have had over the last 4 or 5 years with the Peer Sugar in the driving seat, and in fairness to Ballygunner, held the boys stuff.
Sure, what do you mean?
Welcome back. That's the best ever. Who done it?
It was his own phone.
Someone done it out there. Like.
The feckin' mobile phones.
I'm not sure what you're saying. I'm not sure what you mean. What you mean is it?
Classic. Hey, it was Siri.
I thought there was a new Siri from Cork. Hold on, gal. Go in there, back there.
Roy, come in, Roy.
Okay, Mark, enough. Anyway, now that is good.
You're so hard, Dalo, I can tell you. No, I can tell you, I wait the whole year long for your kid. All year long now, right? You're going to get it now, I can tell you.
Do you think I had anything to do with that? Like, that's Rafe Rocco there in the background, or Jack, or Larry. I'm not saying these little things that come in. I know that was coming up at all there, like. Which, as I was telling you, 85,000 people haven't seen since it went up anyway. Like,
a full attendance for an All-Ireland final.
There was some moment in time. I thought joking. I'm still not sure it was your one phone. I'd say it might have been Rafe in the background doing the sound. Plus, remembering that day, we had done a show earlier in the day. Then we had the AGM of Come On Race, and not an AGM, right. With all the top brass review of things and where we're moving forward of Come On Race, and then we were doing this, and we were having a couple of little drinks there. It was a nice, relaxed atmosphere.
Very funny.
But like, wasn't it fantastic in the Woodlands? They launched it on a Monday night or something, and within 2 days there was 550 people had signed up to come in and meeting John Kiley and Declan Hannon. What?
They came to see you.
I don't. I said I can't see John Kiley now. I come here. I was just feeling sorry for you there a while ago when you ran about all the things that went wrong for Limerick, and I had to laugh when you said that Hawkeye missed the 65 that you never got. So are you starting to come around now and say that we should be using Hawkeye and Bear going forward because of Limerick's controversy?
No, you took me up wrong. I said about the minor one was the Hawkeye that got completely wrong, where the technology got it completely wrong, Mark, number one. And number two, the 65, I said, was a genuine mistake. It looks like he missed it. Like, as you well know in this game, it doesn't go to a Hawkeye for 65. No. So what I'm saying is what happened in the Kilmacud Crokes game looks, for all intents and purposes, like it was just a genuine mistake. So where is the line going to be drawn here? Are we going to be in litigation issues are we going to the rule book to see if something is in the rule book or not? But like, mistakes happen, and like, that's just the difference.
But TJ, it is in the rule book, and this is the reality. The rule is there that you can only play with 15 players, and Dalo was right, and probably most of the GA people are right. The rule was broken on the day. The GA should have taken ownership immediately of the situation rather than forcing the Glen to make an objection and then take up their objection. And now you've Kilmacrud with a counter objection rather than the GA standing over their own rules and having a replay immediately.
Hold a second. It is also in the rule book that if the sliotar goes between the two uprights, that it's a point. Do you know that?
Yeah. So and we all know
that if it comes after the opposition and it goes out over the end line, it's a 65. So it's a mistake. That's what happened. So I'm just saying, we just would need to be very careful into the future. If we have a big furore about, let's say, Limerick and Cork in the first round of the league or the championship or whatever later on, it's a very serious moment and there's a knockout coming. And let's say the umpire makes a mistake, or let's say there's a ball wave wide. Like, what's the difference?
Well, the technology is there.
That wouldn't happen in hurling.
Is Jack O'Connor really out about a pint above
Dalo's mentioned it already. Clare sportingly agreed to replay the 1998 All-Ireland semi-final. Sportingly agreed. So there's none of that has ever happened in hurling. It's all gone to the big ball for some reason or other. But I think there is a problem when the chap is standing in the goals, lads. As there was 3 guys in the goals, the goalkeeper and 2 defenders, and the extra defender was the 16th man. And that is, in a sense, taking it a little bit far. Unfortunately, he was involved in the play in a big way, the last 2 plays of the game. And also, as you know, the 45 or the 45 wasn't retaken. If the 45 had been retaken and the player had been replaced, there wouldn't be a problem.
I agree with you. Yeah.
We move on from the big ball, lads. We move on. We'll be here all night. Yeah, Marco, that was a funny moment. It was great. Lads, the pre-season, I didn't go to a game, I have to say, but I streamed. It was great. Munster Council were streamed. So right from the get-go, I streamed Tip and Waterford. And by God, the belting on a freezing cold night in the Gaelic grounds. Maybe they hadn't full teams, but they just hammer and tongs now. I suppose Liam, first match up, Waterford, he's just left them. And then Davy's gone into Waterford. So to say that these lads don't want to go at it, and then you think of Clare and Tip and Nina, 3,500 people in Nina, and again a soft pitch, cold day, incredible. Watched that, watched Kerry and Cork, and Mark liked a lot of what I saw, but still 2 soft goals. I think that there's just little reminder there for me that I liked the attacking play was very good and direct, and that I didn't see the final. But by all accounts, he came from the dead. But even lads on the other side of it, and I'm not going to get into a huge debate now, Mark, about the split season. No doubt we'll have it again later on. But the thirst for inter-county, lads, incredible. 12,000 people in Wexford Park to see the Wexford Kilkenny game. I know the lights were coming on, but that's obviously a huge league game as well now at the weekend on 5 o'clock on Saturday. Fucking all the good games really are on Saturday this weekend. It's funny you might think of the league. But also that's doubling up as the Walsh Cup final with Galway. So I'd say another 12,000 there on Saturday. It's amazing the thirst people have for inter-county play. Even watching the Clare footballers there on Monday night and the highlights, the crowd was an Innis for it, and a dramatic late win for Clare and what it meant to the players. But of course the league nearly means more in football than the championship to a lot of counties. But I just think as we look at that pre-season competition, is it worth keeping? I know Cork won it now, Mark, so you'll say Pat, as a new manager, got value out of it. But could we be starting our leagues earlier? This is the debate we're going to get into now. We're talking about, looking forward to the league. Still only 2 weeks between the league final because they put on bloody semi-finals, even though that if you Google the league, you'll see just a straight final between the winners of 1A and 1B, which should be the way. And you'd have 3 weeks to the first round of the championship, but there's semi-finals now, and you have semi-finals on the 2 weeks before it, and then you have the final on the 8th, 9th, and then the Munster Championship, Leinster Championship on the 22nd, 23rd. So there's only the 2 weeks. But is the split season worth retaining on that basis? The Fitzgibbon is on, Sigurdsson is on as well. We see all that every day in the Examiner. Fantastic coverage. Do you think, Mark, it's worth persevering with these pre-seasons, or could we have started the league 2 weeks ago?
I suppose there's a couple of things, Anthony. I suppose the one thing that most managers will say with the pre-season games, and be it competitions or whatever, they said if they weren't in a competition, they would be looking for challenge matches. So I think, Cork got a bit of value out. I think Tip got a lot of value out of it as well. I know the Fitzgibbon and the Sigerson crosses over the McGrath Cup and stuff like that. But ultimately, most county teams are carrying 40 plus players now, and the fact that the Fitzgibbon fellas are left off, or in general left off, it gives the county manager the opportunity to give fellas a go and give them a chance to stake a claim on the panel, because there will probably be 14 or 15 of these lads left go in the next couple of weeks as well. So for me, I suppose the one controversy that's raging this week on a Cork side is the fact that UCC are playing this evening in Fitzgibbon. There probably could be anything from 10 plus involved, which isn't ideal, and they won't be back till, we'll say, the early hours of Friday morning, and then playing Limerick on Saturday night. I think some of the planning around those matches should be looked at. So if that match was on Tuesday, I think you'd have no problem.
On Tuesday, Mark? Can I ask you that?
I just don't know. I don't know, because there was nothing on last weekend, from what I can gather from a hurling point of view. So it didn't make any sense playing that match. No, the fact that it's away, if Cork were at home, I still don't think it would be ideal playing Thursday, Fitzgibbon, and playing Saturday night in the National League. Tuesday would be perfect, I think. And to be fair to most managers, nearly all the managers respect the Fitzgibbon and the Sigerson, and we as hurling people and GA people, we would advocate that these lads would be released to play Fitzgibbon and concentrate, because it's only a short window in a player's career to be in college. They'll meet lads from the length and the breadth of the country. There's relationships formed in colleges that last for decades afterwards. And, inter-county managers pulling lads from Sigerson or Fitzgibbon is not the right thing. They should be allowed to express themselves in those competitions. And there's still plenty of time for the inter-county manager to get that player back. But it's just, I think some of the planning around of it causes controversy. And I'd certainly say Cork wouldn't be happy. They'd like to be able to call on the likes of Kieran Joyce, or we'd say Brian Hayes, or Jack O'Connor, or all those lads that they really know they need to release them for the Fitzgibbon to give them their due. So I'm definitely for retaining the competitions, Anthony, simply in the fact inter-county managers would be looking for challenge matches again at that time. And I think it's a good opportunity to give the fringe players a chance.
Yeah. You're making the excuses already for Saturday night, Teach.
Yeah. I'm going to take a couple of questions. I'll come back to Saturday night in a second. The split season first, Dalo, I do think is working, and the general vibe from the players is they're happy with it. I just talk about the club very briefly. Is from my feeling around the country right now, right, is the club season, the way it happened last year, is allowing clubs not to be having to be on pitches kind of before Paddy's Day. They're all kind of doing S&C programs, so it's working nicely for them, where they get into their own leagues maybe towards the middle to the end of April. They're getting ready, and they have a championship in August. So from that point of view, I think it's very clear and defined for the club player, and there's no onus on the club to be out in the pitch in January. It saves pitches, it saves money. That works, right? The structure of the league, the pre-season competition, I'm going to agree with Mark here for a change. I do think that in the absence of that, you will need challenge matches. You'll certainly need where there's counties with new managers that'll have to reach out and spread the net. They'll have to have a look at players and then try and extend that into the National League. I think where some of the issue is right now is if you look at the structure of the National Hurling League this year, right? So the league starts this weekend. There's 5 rounds games in the league, which finish on Paddy's weekend, the 18th to 19th of March. And then you have the following weekend, you have a league semi-final, which you touched on already. And then 2 weeks later, you're into a league final. Like, that is 2 weeks out there from the first round of the championship. I think all the teams will take the league serious to a point that they'll want to make sure that they give as many players and to have their panel of their 26 filled and known by the end of the league. I think all teams will be quite happy to play in a league semi-final because it'll give them a game the last week of March, and it'll give them exactly 4 weeks from there running into the championship. You'd say that's perfect.
Will you be though? Will you be? Sure, you only beat a Joe McDonough team last year in the league, and you win the All-Ireland. Will we have the same again, Afi?
What I'm saying is John will again experiment, and he will be looking to make sure that he knows his 26 players, right? I think you'll have eagerness from the players maybe that weren't on the first 15, that when they get their league time that they want to make an impression. So I do think so. If you go back to the league games last year where Limerick got beaten, they weren't beaten by much. They were narrow enough results that maybe didn't go their way, and maybe I think that they had questioned fitness, and they were heading into a regime or a new season where there was a little bit of an unknown, and now they know that block, and they seem to have got it right last year and got the timing right. So it probably will be something similar in terms of the training block. But the question I have for you going back is so
you'll beat Westmeath and everyone else.
Yeah, I would like to think so. You'll see now Limerick will have strong teams out, but they'll also have maybe one player per line trialed, and that's good business from a manager, is to know where his basic replacement is for each line. But the point I'm going to make to you is the league final, I think, is the conundrum, like we saw last year, is do you want to be in the league final 2 weeks out from championship? Your training block of a month is interrupted. It's a national competition, so you have to give it respect if you're in it. But then when it doesn't go your way, it throws you. You have 2 weeks. That's the piece for me that's not working.
Yeah. And Ken, who would you think, I'm looking at it there during the few days. It maybe suits a Leinster county to win it more, and in due respect now to Antrim and Westmeath, who are in the Leinster Championship, you probably do expect to win those 2 games. So there's going to be a little bit of, I'm not saying leeway, you'll still have to be on your game, but you might be able to make 2 or 3 changes and still win the match. Now, we've seen in Leinster how crucial the scoring difference has been. Kind of caught Dublin last year, I think. They didn't beat the 2 so-called weaker teams, let's say, per se. Now, they've done fantastic work, don't get me wrong. The work that Darren Gleeson and Joe Fortune are doing, incredible. But in Munster, there is no, clear and tip that first round. Waterford, Limerick, it's cutthroat. You lose that one, especially from Clare point of view. It's Ennis. If we'd like to make Ennis a fortress, if we can win our 2 home games against Cork and Tip and Ennis, you've a great chance of being in the 3. And it's all about being in the 3. And then does it suit maybe a Wexford to go all out for the league, get that national title?
Sorry, Dalo, just to compound your point, in the championship, when you play that weekend, 24th of April, the second round of the championship is coming the following weekend. So you nearly have to get ready for both of them. Yeah,
you have. There's no time to recover for the second match. It's just about. But I was trying to pick winners, and I'd said it wouldn't be too hard maybe to see where Pat Ryan would be coming from to get that national title, go for it and get it. And they're not out the first weekend in Munster as well. So from his point of view, it might be the 3-week gap is there, and a national title for Cork players at the moment. None of them have it. So I don't know, disrespect Mark, but I think he's a new manager. Yeah. But for the Kilkenny always do it. The four teams in the league semi-final last year, none of them made the All-Ireland semi-finals bar Kilkenny, and they do it every year anyway. They do the league and try and win the league, try and win everything. So I expect no different there. But I'd say Wexford, Galway could really be a team that would go all out for it. And say, again, with Henry, no title last year, no Leinster, very good All-Ireland semi-final, in fairness, bit lucky against Cork, but that it would suit a Leinster county to go all out and go all out for that Allianz League title.
Yeah, it would suit a Leinster county and Cork to go all out for a national league. I think we've all been, I suppose, bitten by the Waterford experience last year, where they were hugely impressive in winning the league final, and the next thing, the whole thing went belly up for some reason or other. I believe that particular weekend at Waterford won the league final. Limerick had a very successful training camp, which turned their year for them. So, as you mentioned, you have the backdrop of winning or losing a league final, and then you have a team that have an outstanding training weekend and are just preparing for the bigger picture, the big goal, and that's obviously winning championships. Cork obviously have that Achilles heel at the moment in the fact that they haven't won for so long. It is a burden. Pat Ryan has come in with success, at under 21 and under 20 level. I think he'll be instilling a sort of a sense of confidence, even though it was Munster League, Mark, down in Páirc Uí Rinn. There was genuine excitement from the supporters, and there's a huge hunger there for success, and even to win the Munster League, for Shine Dunham Cup and Collective Cup, it was exciting for the Cork, general Cork public. They all stayed around after the match, and that good feeling is there. You're talking about tomorrow evening in Wexford Park, Galway and Wexford. Galway will bring no support, as you know. It's a huge journey for Galway, but yet there will be 12,000 at the game. And it's a National League game. It's Wexford against Galway. Henry's under pressure. I know from living on the borders. You know it too, Dalo, from being on the borders of Galway. Henry's under pressure to produce this year. I think he needs to get something tangible. He has a lot of young fellas coming through that need, since their minor days, to get their hands on silverware again. So I think the league is going to be interesting. T just getting a bit of needle about Limerick there, but I think Limerick make ample use of the National League in the games they play, the players that throw up. And the league has been huge for Limerick in the fact that the Kyle Hayeses of this world have been able to alternate between forwards and backs without any pressure. Nicky can practice his puck out strategy, which is a huge thing in the armory for Limerick. So I think it's going to be still a very good competitive league. I think, as TJ alluded to, it's the league semi-finals when you're saying to yourself, that's when people start pulling up and saying, Jesus, do I need to be in this league final or do I not? And ultimately, as you mentioned, Kilkenny traditionally love the league. They have as many league medals as they have All Irelands. So they will come in strong. You would fancy them for a league semi-final. They don't mind playing in league finals and winning them. But at the end of the day, I think everybody will be competing to get to a league semi-final spot. What happens after that is another day's work.
Well, that's the worst of it then, because it's our second showcase competition, and we're playing double-header semi-final, possibly in Thurles, and some teams are not that keen to make the next step, and that's
why we expressed our disappointment, didn't we? We expressed our disappointment there beforehand, the fact that there was even league semi-finals.
Yeah, straight final, give everyone the 3 weeks. And I don't think it's too late to review that, and I don't think there'd be a single county manager or county board would complain about that. Bar maybe the little financial factor of being in a league semi-final, right? A double header in Thurles. I remember playing in league semi-finals, and Loughnane wouldn't be that keen maybe, and I remember coming back to the local in Clarecastle, and lads said to me, "Will you just let us know anymore if you're not trying the league semi-final? It would save us 80 quid bringing the wife and the 2 kids down to Thurles." You know, and I said, well, I didn't know, honestly. But that's the pity on it. I still think, lads, we'll have humdingers of games. I'd say your game on Saturday night, the 2E, be there. I'm going to try and get out of here. I have a couple of bus loads coming, but I've told them both that I'll have to be leaving at about 4:30, and I'm cutting it short with all that Limerick traffic that'll be on the road to get to Páirc Uí Chaoimh. But I'll hopefully get a car pass off Tony, if you're listening, Tony. If he listens to the hurling show, he wouldn't know, Kerry man. But we're still going to have games where, like I'm on the following Saturday night then live in the Gaelic grounds, and like Clare and Limerick. I mean, what matches threw up last year, and you know well that Lohan will want to go in and say, "Con, it won't matter maybe in the overall scale." But I think we're going to have these humdingers, when it comes round to, Waterford, Tip, Kilkenny, Waterford, even Waterford, Dublin at the weekend, and the whole Dungarvan factor, and thereafter health and safety again is kicking in. Of course, they're after capping that at 3,500, which I think is a joke. They're saying that. I mean, I've played in Dungarvan in front of 8,000-9,000, I swear, which is a pity. But it's still going to throw up, lads, starting with Saturday night. I think these great, big attendance, full-blooded, we'll go at it, you'll go at it games.
I think for sure. I think from, like I said, from Limerick point of view, I think that the lads will be just mad to get back in the pitch. Like, the reality is July seems like an awful long time ago now for inter-county action. Like, it seems like more than kind of the usual kind of one end of the year to the next. You will see new faces. I suppose the challenge from Limerick point of view will be the guys who have that little bit of apprenticeship done over the last couple of years. Is can they break into this first championship 15? You're probably referring to people maybe like Colin Coughlin, Cathal O'Neill, Adam English, these guys. Those guys that are apprenticeship done, they will be mad eager, I'd imagine, for game time to try and see can they maybe wrestle some championship game time away from, we'll say the guys we know. Keane Lynch is obviously back training. Peter Casey's back, who missed the last season. So from Limerick's point of view, they will have a lot of options. And I'm sure John will be very keen to give all those guys a bit of game time. I'd also think that maybe Limerick would probably psychologically maybe kind of put Pat back in his box a small bit. They had a win, obviously, in the Munster League. Go and get the victory, ask the questions about them. And I would say there'll be a little bit of that going on. And I think that each team will want to win the game. It's what team you put out there. I suppose that's what we're questioning, is how strong does John go? I think you'll see a certain amount of trialling. And for Cork, I'd imagine everybody's eyes will be on them. Style of play, their setup. Like we all know, the bigger guys and the younger guys in there, the Bars influence is there. They had a very good win in the Munster League, albeit if you look in behind it on 66 minutes in the final against Hip, they only had 9 points on the board. So still a few question marks there. So I think that we'll all be eager, even for myself, to see what ways they're set up. The Ireland champions are coming to town. As I said, there will be a big crowd there. So it's definitely a first round league game that I think there'll be an awful lot of eyes on for sure.
Yeah, Marco, who are we expecting from Cork? What are you looking for? Who is there something completely different? I see Huggy telling us he was unfairly treated last year. I think I could have done without that. But I see he's back, and he seems to be really enjoying the newness of the setup. He spoke about that. He's looking forward all day to going into training. I think that's a great sign for you. He'd be certainly in my fantasy hurling team, although I've picked one already, but I'll be making a few changes when I see the teams. We'll get to that.
I have a feeling that's a dummy team you're after throwing in already now. Like, and you're trying to distract some of the big hitters to see could they follow your dummy team. There's no doubt about it. Like, now, and I didn't see that. I'm not on Twitter. I just want to confirm that, right? Okay. But I did have a spotter sending your team on, right? Yeah.
You're more spotters than Hitler, you have. But come here, it's a big game. All Ireland champions 4 times in the last 5 years coming to town. The All Ireland final of 2021 still stinging a bit. And like Cork, new manager, successful underage manager, all new, all fresh. What are you looking for Saturday night?
Look, I think, Pat, the 2 wins against Limerick and Tip, the manner of the victories where they came from behind to steal the games by a point, I think that shows that there's a good spirit there and there's a good commitment there. And like, I remember I was doing the live streaming on the day, and I looked up at about the same time as you. There was 65 or 66 minutes. I saw a large crowd kind of leaving the stadium, and you know what? I was a little bit disappointed. Next of all, there was a goal went in, and all of a sudden you see people running back into the pitch to watch it. Like, and Ken was there at the match. The last 7 or 8 minutes was absolutely enthralling stuff, and it just showed once the team can get ahead of steam what can actually happen. We were 8 points down, and to win it by a point. I was on the sideline in the National League in 2015. We were 4 goals up against Tip, and there was about 15 minutes to go, and Tip took over and beat us by a point. And I just saw it firsthand myself. When a team starts to get a run on you, and for some reason, if the other team is taking the foot off the pedal, it's very hard to put the pedal back on. What am I looking for from Cork? I'm just a little bit disappointed that I'd say the selectors won't start any of the UCC lads, which will probably hold back a good few of the newer lads. Now, will they be available for selection? I would expect so. So I would see a lot of changes maybe during the course of the game. I think TJ mentioned it about style of play. I think we'll see a change from Cork. I think the ball will be delivered slightly faster than it has been here today, the last couple of years. And I think a fulcrum of their point could be I'd say Cork will play with a large full forward. And that could be Dalton, it could be Hannity. I think it'll be one of the 2 of them before the year is out. And I think Declan made Brian Hayes, yeah, maybe. He's a young lad in. He's obviously lacking a bit of experience and stuff like that. And but I was actually at the awards, the Clancy's Awards there recently, and Paddy Hayes, his father, came to me and he wanted to correct me on my his wife is not the Olympic swimmer that I thought she was actually. either her sister or not.
She can't swim at all. She's doing lessons at the moment.
Yeah, I said to him, I said, it can't be a bit of fake news, like, you know, Trump like crying that one, like, so sorry, Paddy and Mrs. Hayes. But like these guys from the Bars, the Ethan Toomeys, the Ben Cunninghams, and Brian Hayes, they're exciting players. They're big and they have pace, and I would love to see them against Limerick. And I definitely think there'll be a couple of games where Pat Ryan will earmark what he's looking for the younger lads. So the likes of the Brian Roaches, the Kyle Cormac, right? Those guys, if they start on Saturday night and they put down a marker on Saturday night, they're throwing themselves right into the mix then for the championship start. So
just ask him on that. Just ask him, is Brian Roach the forward? Owen and Brian, isn't it?
Yes. So Owen is the defender.
Forward. Yeah.
Brian is the forward playing midfield. Yeah, really hard working, good lad. Got 2 points against Tip in that league final, but I was delighted with the one he got. I don't know, was it an equaliser or the one that put was right on the sideline in front of the dressing room, the Parky Ring? That's no easy task to hit one like that. But I suppose overall, Anthony, what you're really looking for, and I think we will get it. I think we'll be competitive with a fast pitch on Saturday night.
Sure, I understood that.
Sorry again. Jesus Christ!
I tell you,
turn off that. You can turn off a button there, like.
Cyril have to get it. I don't even know how to turn it on or turn it off. No one ran that on Twitter. But I think Pat will want to win on Saturday night for himself as well, like any selectors. But I suppose the most important thing, and he recognised it after the game against Tip, is that Cork went to sleep for 40 minutes in the middle of the game against Tipperary, and you can't afford to do that against Limerick on Saturday night. What they'll be looking for is they'll be looking for a performance, and they'll be looking for a good attitude from the team. And I think we'll get that, because I think any fella worth his salt will want to play against the best team in the country, particularly when it's at home as well. I think it'll be all guns to the fore on Saturday night. And just on the Pat Hogan thing, you know, you kind of put yourself in the shoes of a player who's doing an interview and they start asking a question about last year. I think the easiest thing would be say, last year is in the past. It's all about the future now. I think Patrick has probably put himself under a small little bit of pressure now, because now everybody's going to be looking at Patrick's performances, and you know, I think he should just do his talking on the field. He's a great player, has always been a very good player for Cork. What has happened in the past, you just leave it in the past and move on. You know, so it could have been a moment where, you know, a question comes at you and you don't expect it, and maybe you get into a controversial situation where you don't need that. But I think he just put a bit of pressure on himself that he doesn't need to do. Just go out and play ball. That's what Patrick has always done. And you know, let's wait and see how the year unfolds for Patrick.
Yeah, he was up at the Cliffs of Moher as well for the league launch, and he probably wasn't used to the surroundings either, the wildness of it.
Wild West.
The fresh air and the breeze there. Yeah,
no clear man at the launch and around the Cliffs of Moher. But anyway, maybe Lohan didn't let him know. I don't know. But Ken, I suppose for the first time in a good few years, you'll have a bit of comfort going to see the Tip games and commentating. You won't be worrying about puck outs or that. Brian has gone on his travels, and I suppose we know that's a part of it now, isn't it? With lads, and you know, COVID didn't get a chance to go anywhere, so he's gone off. He's gone to Australia, I believe.
Yeah, he went to Tuesday after we won the county final. We had our celebrations on the Sunday and Monday, and he took off on the Tuesday, so he's in Africa up to Christmas, and now he's in Brisbane. So himself and his girlfriend Quiva, they're out there working at the moment. He has the hard hat on. He's Bob the Builder now, so he seems to be enjoying the weather anyway. He always enjoyed the good weather, so I suppose that's the way it is. Young people, didn't get that opportunity maybe during COVID. They're getting that opportunity now to travel. So I suppose looking forward to the National League campaign. Just getting back there to Mark, I just found it strange about Patrick. Patrick's is an experienced campaigner, Mark. He's around a long time, and I would be of view that Patrick Hogan has loads to contribute still to Cork hurling, but it was an awkward situation for him, particularly with Shane Kingston, as his cohort up front. I think it would be Shane, I'm sure, man, with a family situation like that, it was a little bit hurtful. I felt myself, it didn't need to be said. It's past tense now. And your morale needs to be high. As you mentioned, there's a strong spirit there with Pat Ryan. He'll be, emphasising that. And I suppose it didn't need to be said really that's my opinion of it anyway, from that perspective, with Shane involved in the panel particularly. I suppose
Ken.
Sorry?
Liam is back.
Liam is back. That's the important thing. I suppose there is going to be a kick in Tipperary. I certainly believe that. They have trained really hard. There was a lot of talk last year about standards of fitness and not being able to finish out games and players being off the pace. I think that's not going to happen this year. I think there's a steely resolve about Tip. I think those 3 games in the Munster League will have helped him in a big way. The spine of the team, which has been, our Achilles heel really, at full back and at centre back, players interchanging. The Declan Hannons of this world, the Mike Cases, Dan Morris is so strong down the middle with an outstanding goalkeeper. So I think, Mikey Breen has been put back to his minor days where he won a minor All-Ireland with Tip. He hasn't set the world alight yet, but he has been adequate. He has brilliant pace, which we have been lacking in our back line for a number of years. And it's a very important role to fulfill. So we're hoping that Mikey Breen can fill that hole for us, which releases, of course, Ronan Maher then to go to the centre of the park, and we mentioned Fitzgibbon and things like that. We haven't seen the Brian O'Mara's yet, the Kieran Conleys yet, mainly because of Fitzgibbon, but they're guys that are going to come into the equation as well. So
yeah, I saw him playing Fitzgibbon last week. He was outstanding in a kind of a deep line. Obviously, Mary I were playing a man back, so he was the loose man. Jesus, he mopped up everything. I really think Brian O'Mara he was a huge loss last year. I think he's a huge part to play. Obviously, the previous year, then his season was cut short with a broken hand after the Limerick game, and I think this fella could maybe even allow Ronan to play maybe on the wing where he'd probably be more comfortable. Even I think he's a prospect for a long-term number 6 for Tip.
Yeah, let's face it, particularly with Craig Morgan out of the equation, Barry Heffernan out of the equation, God rest Dylan Quirk as well, who had a great season last season in his first season. So we need to get our backline have got the run around. Let's face it, let's call it space. Our backline has got the run around in the last couple of years. We've been off the pace. We've conceded big scores. Cork last year in Thurles was an embarrassment. I think Conor Lehane got 7, 8, 9 points from play. We were just off the pace. So from our point of view, it's to get a steady backline, to get a backline that can dominate, particularly under the high ball. I think Liam is starting with his foundation. He's starting with the spine of the team, and he will concentrate on having really 6 competitive backs there.
Yeah.
Ken?
I like what I see so far. Go on, Marco, sorry.
Yeah, Dalo. Paudie Campion, Ken, he was centre back in that league final. How do you rate him, Ken?
Paudie Campion obviously is from the McGrath stock as well. His mother is a McGrath, so he's the first cousin of the lads, Noel and John and Brian. You saw Brian, how good he was. He got man of the match in that Munster League final. Paudie Campion, he's a very good hurler, played very well on that day. Enda Heffernan was right half back for Clonoti, played very well in the day. I think he's bringing in men with stature, Mark, 6-footers. Right. That can move, that can hurl and be strong. And these guys, of course, have been involved in 21 panels, on All-Ireland winning panels. I don't think Podge played it. He might have played wing back, I think, in one of those teams. But he has the experience of playing with a top-class club like Drum. He was outstanding the whole year with Drum and Inch and deserves his chance. And, you mentioned Podge, you mentioned Brian McGrath. Brian McGrath, needs to nail down a place now. And I think... He gave an absolutely excellent display against Cork of defensive play.
Yeah, but he's definitely a halfback. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, he's definitely out the field. Like Brian McGrath is not an inside full back line player.
Yeah, Brian McGrath won a Harty Cup and an All-Ireland for Trimplemore CBS, as you remember, as a centre forward. That's the beauty of the McGraths. Their game instinct is so good, they can play anywhere, but definitely not a full backline option for me. You know, a fantastic open hurler with a class hurler with a great attitude. So, you know, the big bonus for Tip now is to see Brian and John McGrath coming back for the league campaign. I think the league campaign, as you well know, lads, is going to be very important for Tip, because the signs on it, the body language, the way the team will go out, and there was a sense of apathy there last year among the Tip public. You saw, Mark, yourself in Cork, we were outnumbered by the Cork supporters. That's not a good sign. That's not a good sign for any county. And I think there was a sense of apathy there. So I think Liam Cahill and his management team, they need to get the supporters behind Tip again. Get them going, travelling to the matches, as we had at Nina Dalo. For that
that struck me that there was a reel, and the shouting and roaring was very loud coming through my TV anyway. I have to ask you, okay, before we move on, obviously Brian, the return ticket from Brisbane is he'll be back for Lara in the first round of the championship. That's the key thing. But you have another man back again. He's back again, the Bonner. What a tough man. The army must be proud of having a fellow like that on board. He's some warrior.
Yeah, and Patrick looked in superb shape. He's in savage shape. He actually ran the Clonakilty half marathon before Christmas. It was the last marathon of the year. It was supposed to be a full marathon, but thankfully it was a half marathon. But Bonner has such pride in himself. I think once he retires from inter-county hurling and club hurling, he'll probably go at the ultra marathons and the Ironmans, and he just has an unassailable appetite for I suppose torture, really. He's one of those guys that, you know, would hold on to you. You know, at the Cliffs of Moher, he'd hold on to you. He'd pull you back up. I think it's important to have experienced players there. I think with loads of hurling, you know, Bonner will have a big. I think he was very disappointed. He was actually hurting last year at his lack of game time. So he's a point to prove. And I think to have experience like that, Liam Cahill will call upon him a lot more than the opportunities he got last year.
Yeah, and Marco, just to touch on Kilkenny, huge in the veneer start of, you know, long live the king, Derek. You know, we all think of your beloved Manchester United. You're going okay again. You qualified for Wembley last night there, I said, in the Carabao Cup. Like, you'll be going over, I suppose. But we all think of Ferguson. I just think this reminds me of Ferguson out in the field when he was going. He says, your job now is to back your manager. And Moyes lasted how long? 6 months. So we all know it's not Premier League soccer, but Kilkenny hurling is savage, like, and it's a mini drought now at this stage for All Ireland. But Derek, he's a good, solid man. I'd say so important. I know TJ referenced the was it a wide, or TJ was 65, or the umpire made a mistake, but it's massive that Derek is going in on the back of that under 21 or under 20 All Ireland success.
Yes.
But it's huge boots to fill. They'll be patient, but I'd say you'll probably get the first year. The second year you want to be delivered.
I am sure. I think there's no doubt about it that, like, this is the one job I'd say that most people wouldn't want taking on their first role as a manager at senior inter-county level, would be trying to fill the boots of Brian Cody. But I think we're all kind of around long enough to realise that Derek, you know, very, very successful at underage. He was a great player himself, was part of Brian Cody's backroom staff for a long time. So he's a very experienced manager, has taken you up to position. But I think we all know that Kilkenny, I suppose, under Brian Cody, were usually successful, and they're not going to be judging Derek against Brian Cody. They're going to judge him what he can get out of the current panel of players. And from what we saw in the All-Ireland final last year, unless, their inter-county trophies may not be full, but by God, at club level, when you see Ballyhale Shamrocks and what they have achieved over the last number of years, there's no fear of Kilkenny at all. And they will be right there in the mix, Anthony, at the end of the season, I would suspect. And you know, TJ Reid, I presume, will continue on. And like the likes of Owen Cody, he's formed brilliant in the All-Ireland Club final, brilliant last night in the Fitzgibbon as well. So Adrian Mullen, I suppose, is a bit of a doubt because he missed the match and he's a hamstring. So, and now I'm led to believe he's the fittest man in Kilkenny at this moment in time. But I think overall, Derek will be given time. But you know as well as I do, and you look at Columbana last year, he was supposed to be given time and he was told that his brief was to rebuild the team, and he got 12 months out of the job, which was really bad form, I thought, on we said the county board's behalf to remove him and not give him a second year. But I suppose you see young players like Billy Drennan there now. He's a good guy. I was actually at the Galway Golf Classic last year and met Billy Drennan. I think we were off very early and they just came over to take a few photographs, and they had the under-21 cup with them, or the under-20. And, you know, he's put on 8 or 10 kilos since he went in. So the strength and conditioning of the Kilkenny lads, it just, you know, I think a lot. Derek will learn a lot from what Brian has achieved, and plus bring in that physicality that we know that Kilkenny always have. You're just lads. They're just going to be. They're not going away. Like, that's the reality, and they're going to fight you tooth and nail for everything. So, Kilkenny, I don't have any fears of Kilkenny and whoever's in charge of mentally.
You know, we got a bit of Alex Ferguson in earlier, and we got a bit of Jerry Adams there at the end of it. So fair play. They haven't gone away. TJ Galway, second year Henry. You know, obviously he had a lot of turmoil personally last year. The poor guy. And hopefully that nothing like that for him, and they will be serious contenders. What are your biggest things to solve, do you think? My own gut thing, I was just writing a piece on it there for a preview to the league, that to establish whether Evan Ireland, Mark's fantasy hurling man, is a starter, because they need to nail down the free taker. Like Joe obviously now is gone, and Connor struggled a bit. In terms of his Thomas's free taking, impeccable most of the time, and just with Galway, it just was a bit hit and miss, and I think that's an issue for them. And maybe then 3 and 6, obviously Dahi, he's great faith in Dahi, he was captain last year. I presume he'll be still captain, but 6, I suppose Garrod got injured last year. They're the couple of things in my head. We spoke a lot about younger players, I suppose older players as well. We touch on them maybe in a sec. David Burke's gone back, which is a good sign, I think, that kind of they feel it's this is the year, and we're going all out for it. And of course, everyone's going all out for it. I'm not saying, but I think there's a feeling with Galway supporters that at least maybe a Leinster title has to be delivered.
Yeah, I think looking backwards first, they'll be disappointed that they didn't land the Leinster title last year. They were put themselves in a good position. They didn't play well in the final against Kilkenny. The start last year, it was very much new and fresh, and just like Ken spoke about there with these new managers, like that's the difficult piece, is getting that right, getting everybody kind of behind you, getting the supporters behind you. Henry had that from the start, and you'd have to say that 2022 was a pretty okay season for them. Like, they ran Limerick very close. They were very, like, just hit for tat going down the stretch. Tactically, they were very good. And it seems to be, from my hearing, is that the organisation is top class, the coaching, that they've everything on the money. I suppose they had to rebuild without Joe Canning last year, which is always going to take a bit of time, like you spoke about after Brian Paudie. That takes time. What would Galway love? Like, I suppose they'd love an heir to the throne to someone like David Burke in the middle of the field, right? Somebody coming in there behind him. That would probably be key. Like he's been just a colossus in the middle of the field for a long time now, and he can't keep going forever. It is great news that he's back, because he's a brilliant leader around the training pitch and game day. And even last year, he was one of their better players still. The forwards, there was a little bit of maybe, what would you call it? Maybe kind of I stepped in, you stepped out. Like, there's a lot of players playing well at times. Maybe a little bit more consistency in the forward line. I just head around all their score getting. I thought tactically they were very good, especially against Limerick. They're getting an awful lot right. Probably love to get 1 or 2 new players, maybe that just burnt in the first 15 last year, to see, like you spoke about Evan Ireland, can he crash into the first 15? That's a question mark. I have to say, I saw a couple of new players. You've probably seen them in the area tournaments. They definitely have a couple of new ones. Like one new player, definitely. I think there's a lot to offer. He is young. He's young, Tiernan Killeen from Lochray. I think he's got something to offer. I think there's something exciting about him. They have a couple of other forwards there I'm sure they'll have a look at. But it'll be more of the same. It'll be an awful lot of the same players. But there's definitely, I'd say, if you want maybe to fix one thing, it's that consistency, that they can kind of bring that every day. Like as I said, the Leinster final performance last year would have been dipped below maybe what they would have liked themselves. Like, thought they were excellent in the semi-final against Limerick. That performance would have won the Leinster final for them. But to answer your question, they'll need a trophy. They'll need a Leinster championship.
Yeah.
Only one team can win the All-Ireland. That's the reality, which they'll all be gunning for. A National League Leinster title and build on it and see where it takes them and get themselves to the last four. So that's the challenge for them. But to go back to what you were saying there about players and maybe managers getting time, and even in the club scene now, I see like there's the last maybe 5 to 10 years, the levels of everything in a club dressing room and an intercounty dressing room has risen. So the players now expect the things to be organised. They expect the S&C to be right. They expect nutrition. They expect the video analysis to be right. The expectation around the tactical and the coaching on the pitch. So these guys now are smart guys in dressing rooms everywhere. So they'll suss you pretty quick now, Dalo. So you want to be on the money. So like, that's the challenge. And it's nearly frightening now to go into some of these places because these guys are so well versed in what they require and what they need. So huge challenge now for all. There's a lot of new managers and there's heads on the block here. So, and I think in all walks of life, one thing we all lack is patience. So the reality is, people will be looking for early vibes to say, do you know what, I like where this is going.
Yeah, and no better way to start for them than going into Wexford Park, huge crowds, floodlights on. And I suppose with the Dubs, Micheál has gone to Dublin. My view on that, Ken, would be there's a rebuilding job in Dublin needed. Matty, he was there just before COVID. He got a very raw deal the day of the Leinster final when the 4 players were ruled out. 2 starters, 2 that would have definitely come on with positive COVID. And then I wouldn't blame him for sticking with what he knew last year. Almost was in the tree to come out of Leinster, and his time finishes. Another Galway man gone in, a man that has delivered the only All-Ireland since Cyril Farrell to Galway. Top-class man. Got to know him through the Sunday game, and he's really good, great hurling man, I would say, Micheál Donoghue. And it's a rebuilding job for Micheál, I think, because straight away, Liam Rush has announced he's gone. Chris Crummey and Keane O'Callaghan has announced he's gone. Over the years, we were speculating, could Matty get Con O'Callaghan to hurl for a year? Now Keane is gone. So it's a big job for Micheál. I'm sure, though, knowing John Costello and the board, they're giving him time. It's a rebuilding job. He tried out a lot of new faces. So we just watch. I'd be interested to see him in Dungarvan on Sunday, on Sunday night there. So that can be our key game Sunday. Obviously, probably the main games are on Saturday evening. Waterford came the champions. We have to talk about them. And for some ways, Davy was on complaining about the Muir Forna, and that's a debate I suppose we'd all probably say we nearly agree with him that it is very hard to get a word in without the Muir Forna. I think TJ's right on that, and I agree with Davy there. It didn't, maybe sanction him, and if you see him having a spat with someone on the field, which was happening, or else get your physios up to the level that Limerick are at, who bring in the messages, the doctor and the physios. We touched on that. We told John Kiley in Murphy Browns about that, TJ. He wasn't too impressed with me here, but we were having a few sociable drinks, so he was okay. But Waterford, there's a bit of pressure on with Davy. Like when he took over in Clare, I suppose things were pretty low. He delivered an All-Ireland and a National League title a couple of years later. We'd have to say with Waterford, when he went in, they were in turmoil. Justin, remember the players and all. Got him to the All-Ireland final. Okay, that didn't go well, but won a Munster, won a Leinster with Wexford, who were also kind of, although Liam Dunn, I would say, had, from my experience, because I was around Dublin at the time, had started. But this is the first time, I suppose, Davy's gone into a job where it's an All-Ireland kid, or, the team is there, they're ready. So there's a little bit of different pressure on him. Now he's way more mature, I think, and even see Stephen Bennett talking about it in yesterday's paper that he's been shocked at how calm he's been so far. But of course, when the matches roll around now, I'm sure we'll see Davy in full flow again, which we'd all love to see. Of course, it adds to the whole thing. When Kilkenny and Waterford meet, Tip and Waterford meet in the league, it'll be high octane with him again as always. But it is an interesting project, isn't it? The players are certainly there. Tyg de Burke, I believe, is back. Davy's telling us all these guys are injured, but from what I'm hearing, they played a challenge match with Wexford there. I think it was last weekend, and gave Wexford a good hiding. And Wexford also interesting project with Dara. A good year last year, I would have felt. And I think for them, I'd go all out for the league if I was Dara. because a good chance of being in the 3 in Leinster anyway. But for Waterford, it is a big first season, isn't it? It feels like that.
Yeah, and I suppose bar Limerick, the luxury of riches of players is in Waterford. There's also, you've got to take into account on a negative point of view, the Bennett's. You mentioned Stephen staying, which is important for Davy, but of course the other 2 are gone, Shane and Kieran. Pádraig Mahoney has also retired. Whether that was by choice or by the fact that maybe he felt he hadn't a role to play in the setup, I don't know. He's an experienced player, top forwards in the country, as you well know yourselves, lads. Waterford, Davy's second coming. After last year with the championship, the catastrophe that was the Munster Championship last year, Waterford have a huge point to prove. And there's a little bit of pressure there really for Davy because of the fact we can play all the challenge games we like, lads, or the league games we like, but when it comes to the crunch, it's all about getting to the Holy Grail. So he has a bit of rebuilding to do. I'm a bit concerned about Waterford, the fact that Ballygunner, who, as we well know, are in the top 1-2 teams in the country for the last 5 years, aren't really, bar Desi Hutchison, aren't contributing in a huge way to the county setup. Stephen O'Keefe didn't commit back as well, as we well know. Philly O'Mahony, an outstanding hurler as well. So Patrick Fitzgerald will probably come into the equation as we know from the Ballygunner end of it. But I'd be a little bit concerned that a number of Ballygunner players haven't committed fully to the Davy regime. So they have a lot to prove. When they win games like National Leagues or National League semi-finals or even Munster round robins, we take it for granted. Oh, Waterford are flying it, their tails are up. But last year they hit a roadblock, and there is a little bit of rebuilding to do. The Tig de Burkes of this world and Austin Gleeson's obviously are going to have a big impact on where Waterford will go. But overall, I just have a sense that Conor Prunty, won an All-Star in 2020 last year, or 21, didn't set the world alight last year. He has to come back into the equation, lost his place. They need, again, to make a statement. They will play well in the National League. What it bodes for championship, I don't know. But Davy definitely, with his second coming, as you mentioned, nothing less than an All-Ireland will do. And you're mentioning the Wexford's of this world and the Dublins of this world, and you're saying that, oh yeah, sure, it's a definite 3. And it's a pity for Dublin that we're saying it's a definite 3 in Leinster with obviously Wexford, Kilkenny and Galway. But Dublin hurlers, like, to get an All-Ireland winning manager into their setup is a great coup for John Costello and Dublin hurling in general. So we'll hope that they will be competitive and go at it as hard as they possibly can. Dungarvan is something similar, as you well know, Dalo, to Parnell Park. So it's going to be tight and hard and dirty, and weather conditions, it's always sticky down there. So it's going to be one hell of a battle of wills as well as hurling. It won't be a free-flowing game maybe that we tend to expect in games like that. But I think overall, Waterford, we know they have huge potential. Can they deliver? That's the next big question.
Yeah, and obviously the news had broken since we had our last pod. They play in Thurles, Mark, for the Munster Champ. I don't think that's a massive disadvantage because there was a bit of a hang-up about Walter Park anyway, wasn't it? And when they get Walter Park back, it'll be all shiny and new and freshness about it. I don't think it's a massive... I think they're they're a quick team.
Listen, they are, and they're hurlers. Jesus, they're great hurlers. Like De Burke, Jamie Barron, Stephen Bennett, Ozzie Gleeson, Caleb Lyons, Desi Hutchinson. Like, they'd be in, the Daly's era, Irla, Cork. They'd be in anybody's inter-county team at this moment in time. So they won't mind. I think they won't mind going to Thurles at all. There's no doubt the home venue, people will always say that they expect to win their home games. But I just think in Waterford's situation, they won't mind going to Thurles one bit in the slightest. But it's a big blow, I suppose, in some respects to the city of Waterford, who would be expecting a big influx of people maybe on a Friday evening if it was a Saturday game or Saturday if it was a Sunday game. So economically, it'll be a bit of a blow to Waterford City. But in the overall context of this year, I'd agree with Ken what he said there about it's a bit of a comeback season, rebuilding. Would I go as far as say rebuilding? I think whatever went wrong after the league final, the players know what went wrong. We don't. We're not privy to what actually went wrong. But I think the players, it's up to them to step up to the plate now. And I think they're of an age. They're a mature team now. There's none of them gone over the hill, and there's no real kids bearing. As Ken mentioned, Pat Fitzgerald, he's a young lad and has a great future ahead of him. But they are a very mature team right now, and they're the people really that are carrying the can this year. And they have got a good manager in Davy Fitz, whatever. You know, I wouldn't be Davy's greatest fan, and I have no problem in saying that. But I also would recognise that he's a very good manager that will get the best out of the team. And more than likely, he'll get the best out of him in the first year. So I expect a very, very strong challenge this year from Waterford. And they would be one of my teams to watch out for.
Yeah. And I on Wexford, they've been lining them out fairly strong. Obviously, the Kilkenny game took on a life of its own with the lights. And I see, like the Chinner has nearly played all the Walsh Cup games. And I think if he can get 2 or 3 more, we all know in the Clare game when the 2 or 3 injuries hit at the vital stage, the Shane O'Donnells and the Tony Kellys really came to life and got Clare over the line in a game probably they were lucky enough to win. So they could be my dark horse for the league. I think themselves and Cork could be the dark horses, and that'd be a great league final, wouldn't it, to look forward to? So we had you there already, man.
I was lucky enough to go to the races in Tramore on the 1st of January. It's kind of an annual pilgrimage now to get and I met Paudie Manning, and I was in his company for at least an hour. He'd been married a couple of days previously. He was in great form. But I must say, an absolute gentleman of a guy. And I had a great chat with him about this, that, and the other. And I want to wish him all the best. I didn't expect that he would retire, to be fair, because his form with Ballygunner was electric in the last couple of games that he played. So I'm disappointed to see him half the league.
What an exhibition. Yeah, what an exhibition he put on the Gaelic grounds against Napier-Sig. He was absolutely unreal that day.
And we all knew he was very strong off his right-hand side, but he got points that day off his left-hand side, and he looked extremely comfortable. But he was just, as a guy and a player, he was remarkable, and I really enjoyed his company, I'd have to say.
Yeah, I wonder, are the Gunners, we wish the best to Pádraig. We've always enjoyed watching him play. I wonder if the Gunners focused on the 10 in a row in Waterford. 10 in a row, it's hard to... We did 2 in a row once in Clare. So that's a fair assumption. There's 4 other teams, and it'll be all about staying in the division. I suppose for them, that's Laois and Antrim and Westmeath and Clare. It's just all about staying in the division. And
Clare.
Yeah, and look, that's crucial for our development going forward, is staying in Division 1. So for those 4 counties, yeah. Look, on the Clare thing, yeah, looking forward to seeing Adam Hogan. Hopefully he nails down a spot. Picked up a bit of an injury after the Tip game, but was outstanding in Nina that day against Tip. Was the real leader for Tulla CBS winning that Harty Cup 2 years ago, and is from real good stock in Fecal. He's one we've all been looking forward to. I think the leaving cert kind of came in the way last year, so and I think Clare need a back or two. And I think we were on about TJ. Maybe the future this year might be full forward for Kilkenny. We were on about Hoggy, David Burke. I think John Conlon for Clare can we knock another big year out of Johnny C? And even that day in the All-Ireland semi-final, it was like sticking a needle in the balloon that day when Clare came out to warm up, and you could see Conlon was still in the tracksuit and hobbling and wasn't going to play. And I think I was on live, and we were there. Is he playing? Isn't he playing? You wouldn't, the usual mind games are going on. But for me, if we can get a fully fit John Conlon again, I mean, he was the Limerick games last year, both the Munster final and the match in Ennis, I thought he was colossal, like in terms of the physicality he could bring to that ultra physical Limerick half forward line. He'd be huge for us, I think, and with a David McInerney one side of him and whoever be the other side, you can match up really well with that Limerick possible half forward line of Morrissey, Hayes and Hago, and maybe even Keane Lynch now turn into and who knows, Kyle could be half back again. So yeah, that's a clear point of view, lads. But again, Brian is in his 4th year. It's about finding 2 or 3 players, I think, and being absolutely ready for that Tip game in Ennis, which is maybe season defining in one way. So that's just to give it a quick, clear take. I'm not trying to duck that or anything like that. So look, it all kicks off.
And the funny thing, Dalo, just before you go, the funny thing about that Waterford, the home matches, Tip are playing Waterford in the last game of the round robin in Thurles in Simple Stadium. And would you believe it, Waterford will have played 2 games already in Thurles when they play Tip. So it's nearly a home game for Waterford rather than Tip. And that's going to be a really critical game. Hopefully, both teams will be in the business end of things.
Yeah, and like even logistically, it has made things lovely as well, because Clare's 2 away games this year were down to Waterford, which is the biggest trek in Munster for Clare and for Waterford, you know. And we know how poor Waterford were in Innis last year at the end of the season. Maybe they hadn't too much to play for, but for it, that's the one real tough. Cork is tough enough as well, I suppose. It is a bit of a trek for some of the lads as well. I'm thinking of Conor Cleary, who's from Milltown Malbay up the road here from me in West Clare. But now Clare have 2 in Innis, 1 in Limerick, nearly a home game in terms logistically. You can warm up in Cusick Park and drive in the road 20 minutes with a guard escort. And Thurles was very successful for Clare last year, beating Tip and beating Cork, you know. So I think that has worked out for a lot of counties. But I also think Waterford won't mind it either. They know they go to Cork and they've 3 matches in Thurles. Nice and familiar. Know your hotel, know your warm-up, know your timings. So I think, and I'm not sure where the league game is on, Tip and Waterford. Is it Dungarvan or Thurles? But if it's Thurles, it'll also help in the preparation for that, you know. So yeah, and lads, a great 2A as well, a very competitive 2A with the 2 Northern boys, with Down and Derry, and then Carlow and Offaly and Kildare could be dark horses there, I think, and Kerry, obviously. Stephen Kerry, I think I know he said yesterday, I think that they're going all out for promotion. They needed to promote Kerry hurling going forward. But I think it's all about, after losing the 3 McDonagh finals, it's all about for Kerry trying to get over the line in that McDonagh final and give the GA a headache whether they go into Leinster or back into Munster. And we'd all think it should be back into Munster. So we look forward greatly to the weekend. We're delighted to have the big stuff back, the big crowds, and I can't wait, actually, myself. We have to have a quick look back, Mark. We won't labour it too much because it's a few weeks back now, and we spoke about the Football All-Ireland Club already a bit at length. But we had great All-Ireland clubs down along the lists, and even Munsters. I see Bruff, good victory for John Mulqueen and the Sons there, TJ, at the weekend. Yeah. Suitably celebrated, I'd imagine. Shout out to Mull and the boys playing, and I'd say there was a mixture, the old and the young on that Bruff team. But huge. Ballyhale again setting all sorts of records, Marco. I suppose it was all for them in lots of ways, and we weren't on duty for the Ballygunner game. They just came out and were defiant, and I didn't think they were savage in the final. I actually thought Dunley had quite a chance and did a great job on TJ. But of course, Paudie, as you said, came to absolute into his own 1-5 from Clay. And they're a phenomenal team. But I do think that Dunley team, they'll probably need the breaks. You don't need a Ballyhale in the equation. But if it was a new team to come out of Kilkenny and maybe a fresh enough team to come out of Munster, I think that Dunley team has the makings of an All-Ireland club.
But the killer of the whole thing, if you're in Dunley's situation, is that you had to beat Thomas's in the semi-final, and after getting a massive victory in the semi-final, that you come up against Ballyhale Shamrocks. I know when you get to the semi-final and final stage, you probably are going to have the best teams in the country anyway. But it's a very, very tall ask for a team to beat 2 massive teams with fierce reputation at that level. But hats off to Ballyhale, in fairness. They just keep coming back. And the funny thing is, they've had a good few managers in charge of them over the last number of years with the success. So it isn't down to, we'll say, the Brian Cody or the John Kiley or who is in charge of them. This obviously is led by the players, and they know exactly, and I've often made this point, that they know exactly when they need to have themselves right, both get qualifying in the championship in Kilkenny, and they've often squeezed in the last spot of their round robins just to make sure they're in the latter stages. Once they get up and running with a head of steam, they're nearly impossible to stop. You know, TJ was brilliant all year. Probably didn't have his greatest final. Joey Holden was brilliant at fullback on the day. And then Owen Cody for me up front, just belied his class. He probably, do you know the way Kilkenny have always had a player coming? So you had, we said, the Eddie Cares, the DJ Careys, the Henry Sheffords, TJ Reid. You know, is it going to be Mullen or is it going to be Owen Cody that's going to take up that mantle now? And TJ's not going to go on forever, lads. And, you know, when we talk about the greatest players we've ever seen, TJ Reid is going to be right up there at the top of that pecking order because he's been magnificent. And we're all looking for who is the next best player, who's the next top player. Like, we know Tony Kelly is an exceptional player in this country at this moment in time. TJ, but who's going to be the next fella? It could be the Owen Cody, could it? You know, so brilliant for Ballyhale, and I'm not going to labour on the point. You know, just to reiterate, going back to the semi-final win against Ballygunner. You know, they were once they were robbed of the final last year. They were very unlucky, and Ballygunner got a great result. But my God, Ballyhale by far the better team in the semi-final, and they probably could have won with a lot more in hand. And only for Stephen O'Keefe in goals against Ballygunner, I think Ballyhale would have won pulling up on that occasion. So just to mark that semi-final, we didn't get a chance to say anything about it afterwards after previewing it. But it was a really good defiant display by Ballyhale, and I think Ballygunner went into that game as favourites. So, you know, once Ballyhale get the bit between their teeth, they're nearly impossible. A little bit by Kilkenny. Don't poke the bear, because I can tell you, if you poke them, they'll come back. And I suppose Colin Fennelly did his talking on the field afterwards with our man, the diver, Barry Coughlin, fullback. So, you know, I let it go now after that.
Leave it, please. Yeah, just to touch on it, we want to open a debate on it, but Jesus, the performance from Stephen O'Keefe that day came. Jesus, what a display of goalkeeping, and what a pity he's not making himself available. But we won't go there. I thought also, Marco, and you mentioned him, Joey Holden's performance in that match. And the first 5 or 6 minutes, I said, geez, Joey could be under pressure here with Desi. God, lads, he rolled back the years and talk about defiant and a leader, and, you know. And they were lucky to have him, I think. I think it was his dad got sick and unfortunately he passed on. And
passed away,
he stayed around. He was going to go away travelling for a year. And God, what an asset. What a leader. And I'd say Derry Klingett has probably been on the phone saying, Joey, take a few weeks, but I might be wanting you as well, you know. But Marco, or TJ, the south side of the city has been on fire for a lot of years now. But is the north side beginning to rumble as well with Monaleen picking up the intermediate All-Ireland?
Yeah, like I saw all three All-Ireland Club finals, the junior, intermediate, and the senior. I thought there were three very enjoyable games. Lots of positives. Touching Monaleen first, great for them. They've been brilliant at underage. Castletroy College obviously is situated there. They're in the B schools final as well. Like, they'll probably be trying to get into the Harty and try and get maybe wrestle back some of that Artscoil Reach kind of progress they've made over the last number of years. An awful lot of work being done, as I said. Underage in Limerick, Monaleen are very much to the fore, let's say under 13, 15, 17, really, really strong teams, strong numbers, a lot of work being done. You can see that. And they have a lot of young fellas out coming on over the next couple of years. So plenty of positives there. I think that Donegal Dalig and goalie has gone into John Kiley's setup as well for the league. So huge amount of positives. Yeah, they have work to do to get to where the Piercy are, but I'm sure they'll be within their sights. They're in the Senior B now, which will be achievable for them. So great win for them and to win All Ireland. I suppose overall, to look at, like, you'd have to say what took me was maybe the quality and the effort from the Mayo lads and the Sligo lads was really, really impressive to watch. What's brilliant for them, I suppose, is they now know that basically that they're at the level that's required. They don't have much to find. Like, if they can go back, keep working on their game, there's an All-Ireland final, like, they're at the perfect level. Even there, I got text there from Niall Rochford up in Ashford. He said that the interest in Mayo hurling is increasing all the time, and he was even asking us, would we go up and do a hurling show up there to kind of give it another push? Like, so I told him we'll be on at some stage. But the quality.
They're a great club, Turin, though. Turin,
brilliant. Yeah.
I remember winning the sevens with Kilmacud, and the toughest match we got the whole freaking day was off Turin in the group.
Yeah,
they were serious players, like, and you know, they're a total hurling committed club as well, and.
Yeah, to be brilliant. And Ken, you probably even maybe know more about all these clubs than me. I'll go back to what I'm saying about that these guys' expectation, even though they might be in the so-called weaker counties, they still expect the coaching and the video analysis and the strength and conditioning and nutrition. They all expect them things to be right.
Yeah, and pure hurling as well. You saw the teamwork, and that was a really classy, final. I think you think about Turin, it's a religion for them, from Joe Henry. We all remember Joe Henry, but right down, it's an absolute religion for them. And people tend to forget, they also won the Connacht Club final by beating the Galway County champions, Killimer. So it was no flash. They didn't come in any side door and like that into Croke Park. And we're so close, to gaining glory. And we think of Mayo and we think of Keith Higgins, and we have to sympathise as well with the Higgins family on the death of Pierce. When he was diagnosed with his illness, he still continued to go out and play hurling, still continued coming to the field. One of his hands wasn't able to hold the hurley. He played with one hand. That's the spirit, that the Higgins family have, but particularly the love of hurling they have in Mayo. So I think overall, Turin, an outstanding display. They won't want moral victories either, lads. They'll be saying we should have won the shagging thing. Oh, yeah. But what a game of hurling. And, club hurling, it filled a huge hole there before Christmas. Absolutely outstanding games right through. And Ballyhale, I think Marco mentioned, it doesn't matter about managers. It's about the guy that goes inside the line, wears the jersey, and has pride in his club. And an absolutely outstanding display. And we mentioned, obviously, the Stephen O'Keefe, but Dean Mason, he got a little bit of stick the year before for the Ballygunner goal. But by God, what a year he had as well in both semi-final and finals. Absolutely outstanding saves. And he proved his pedigree again.
Yeah, I think he's in goal for UCC. I think Mark as well, isn't he? I think he's
UL.
UL. Sorry.
Himself and Reece Shelley are fighting it out there.
We'll probably be expecting with the team they have to pick up a Fitz medal as well, and they're hot favourites, I see anyway. And Marco, then to finish it off, fantastic achievement by Easky of Sligo to get to the final again, and that'll tell us all about the pockets of hurling. We don't hear about people saying, "Is there hurling in Sligo?" By God, there is, and. But Swanee got his All-Ireland. You come to Murphy's for the bit of bonding, Marco, and then you get the kick out of that and win the All-Ireland club. So just for the season ahead, lads, we're available here to take you on the Saturdays for a bit of bonding,
Very good.
Ballygiblin, they got back into it by the year restructure, but they fully took advantage.
Yes.
And then Mark Keane back to Australia.
Oh, Jesus, that's an incredible bit of news. Just we'll touch on Mark Keane in a minute, but I suppose, look, on the Easky situation, I was very impressed with the manager, Cullen at full forward. I thought he was excellent, his skill level, and the two McHugh boys, Joe and Rory, they were very, very good. But when you go into a final and you concede a goal with the very first puck of the game, it's a killer. And in fairness, it couldn't have worked out better for Ballygiblin and stuff. It was Mark Keane to pick up the breaking ball and ran straight through the centre. And passed it then to Darren Flynn, who's probably from a hurling point of view, he's probably their best forward. So he drilled the back of the net. And we've all been in games where the last thing you want to happen is to concede a goal in the first minute of the game. So it put Easky on the back foot for an awful lot of the game. But in fairness to them, they stayed at it. And I said only for Joe Sullivan, who ended up being the man of the match. He was brilliant from frees all through the game and brilliant from play in general as well. So. But I suppose Ballygiblin were just that little bit stronger, I think, Anthony. The Mark Keane situation is an incredible scenario because a week before they played in the All-Ireland Club final, he lined out with Cork at wing back against Kerry in the Munster League. He was very solid, very physical, and something that you'd be looking forward to. And I suppose if you had an eye on Limerick down the road at some stage, like the Garrow O'Hagedy's, that he would have been earmarked for him. But then he was picked to play in the final, the Munster senior final against Tipperary, and he didn't turn out. And it seems as though it was a phone call that came from Collingwood through Marty Clark above in the north of Ireland. I suppose was asked. I think Collingwood had a player who had suffered a concussion. His 10th of the season, I'm led to believe, and he was ruled out for the rest of the season. And the only way you could replace a player like that is if you got an overseas player. And it just happened to happen the same time as Mark Keane's season finished with the club. But, I don't know what the situation. He obviously got an offer that he couldn't refuse to go back over there, but it's disappointing, I think, because the lads, I suppose Pat Ryan and his management team would have been looking forward to see how far could this lad get in the scene. And I was kind of looking forward, because I would have said that he's a defender out and out over the last couple of years when he was being played in the forwards. And his size and his mobility was excellent. But it is what it is. We just have to get on with it. But if a fella like him happened to come back to Ireland again, he'll just have to pick up his hurling skills, because he's going to be physically fit. But it's just his hurling will obviously be lacking.
I suppose you can't blame him. I suppose Ken touched on Brian. Ken touched on Brian being in Brisbane, and he loves the weather, and he's still working construction though, and he's the hard hat on, as you said, Ken. But this guy's gone back out now to train and rest and play football, and it's hard to blame guys, isn't it? Really, I would say that. Lads, we better keep it moving, because we're going over the hour and a half. Larry will be giving out. We move. I think. Look, we've had a good look at back, and we've had a good look at some of the new faces. I mentioned Adam Hogan. You mentioned Billy Drennan. I think very exciting, Mark. I suppose Adam English, TJ, fellas like that. We'll be looking. Brian O'Meara, I think, back, and so it kicks off, lads. That also means, lads, fantasy hurling kicks off. I have a team in. Might be a couple of changes. Get your teams in there. The 3E and the rest of our usual guests. We'll be having our own league, the private battle. Landers probably won't go too hard for the league. Pat Ryan might, but our own league, lads, the Examiner League. I know Larry will put up the link as well to our own league. As many of our listeners, live listeners, into that, it'd be great. We just hope that Johnny McGrath makes a bit of an effort not to get the wooden spoon again. I still have it above the house. Need to meet him to present the team. Might see him in Cork Saturday night. Bring it with me. Wouldn't it be lovely to get pitch side if you can organise it, Landers, to present the wooden spoon? Anyway, we'll see. Fancy Butler Hurleys and Kilkenny lads back on board with the prizes. Fantastic to have them on board again. So I know Cahill is gone off on a belated honeymoon. Congrats to Cahill, got married there just before the Christmas, so he's not around to drive it on as much. So he'll be back. I think he's back maybe the weekend. But we'd like everyone to get their teams in. You've two kind of nights now I suppose teams won't be released till tomorrow night. So you need to be on the ball, get in your team. A tenner sterling, great crack up for a tenner. Great fun, great slagging, and now the TJ has a hit squad behind him as well. And Brian,
did you win the league last year, Mark?
He did, I think.
I think I topped this group, did I or no? Were you ahead of me?
No, I won the championship. I think you won the league.
Limerick don't do the league anymore, so Limerick don't do the league anymore.
It's trying to find out who will be playing as the challenge now in the league, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
You need to know the injuries now, and you need to know who's going to be in the Fitzgibbon and later on, who may and may not be playing. There's a lot of decisions to be made. Charlie's a year older now; he's 10. Your man here has got two selectors with him all the time, right? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's on Twitter.
It's all about the management team. Mark, sorry, is Mark Coleman, was that confirmed? Is he injured?
Oh, he's that.
Oh, he should definitely be in your team. Okay. He should be a first pick for you now.
He's gone. He was injured. He's gone for the year, is he?
He's out. Yeah.
The possibility of being back if Cork progress, hasn't he?
Okay.
Yeah, but they will be planning without him at this moment in time. He's a big loss to be fair. Yeah. And there is a lot of injuries on that to believe, so it's a tricky one. It
is.
What I did, get his back, you rush him back.
Yeah, what I did there last night is I picked a team, a kind of a proper stab at a team. The first one was only, and then you've unlimited changes, lads, up to I think 12 o'clock on Saturday. So I'll be waiting to see. I've Eddie Gibbons in goal. I think Eddie could be some performer for Eddie. The misfortune of letting in that soft goal against Ballyhale, but trust me, he's a top keeper and could be coming up hitting penalties and long range frees. Eddie's some striker of a ball. He's in goal for DCU in the Fitz and had him as a young lad. Played him in the forwards. He's a very good hurler. But whether Michal picking will influence who'll be in the goal or not for Sunday. So that could be changes there. We'll wait and see the teams. But lads, get your teams in. We'll have great fun out of that. And the main thing is, once you beat Higgy on the Clarecastle League, that's my main goal. Colin Higgy Higgins has to be beaten in every competition in fantasy hurling because he knows more than me about hurling. So, and that's always all politics are local, and that stays that way, doesn't it? Fogra's, lads, to bring it to a close, but we probably have quite a few. I want to start just with saying there's a big game. Obviously, there's a big game in the league coming up between Kilkenny and Tip, but there's also a big game on the 19th for what's now known as the Dylan Quirk Foundation. Obviously, we all know the story. Dylan collapsing and unfortunately passing away in Simple Stadium alongside his great buddy, Craig Morgan. Just unbearable scenes, and I think, much lamented, much loved by, I didn't know him personally, but I think he was much loved as a character as well as an infectious guy. And as you said, Ken, earlier, had a fantastic season for Tip and will be a huge loss. And I just think the Quirk family, and I would have hurled against Dan in my younger days, great player, obviously, the big connection with Declan Ryan's family as well. And they've been so brave, and they've set up this foundation. There's a GoFundMe page there. We'll put up the link. And that match, hopefully, will be a huge turnout for that game in Simple on the 19th. And all the money is going towards SADS, the Sudden Adult Death Syndrome. And they're hoping, I know Dan said that they'll be screening from every player, camogie and hurling from under 12 up for this conditions that might be there underlying that people don't really know about. So I think it's a fantastic, I'm not saying Turner, they're still grieving for their fantastic boy, but they've really kind of made a positive straight away out of Dylan's life. And I think it's a great one to support, Ken, and we'll be driving that on. And what a loss to Clonalty, Rossmore, and a loss to his family, first of all, obviously, and to Tip hurling. This kid is.
Yeah, a huge blow to us all. We're all still hurting. I was actually in the company of Declan for a long time, his uncle Declan Ryan, who happened to be, of course, manager of Clonalty Rossmore. We had a 2001 reunion, delayed reunion, wonderfully organised by a one-man committee in Tommy Dunn. and we absolutely had an outstanding evening together. Great chat and great banter. But met Declan. The family are so strong and so positive. You talk about club situation, huge connections. Declan, his uncle as manager, obviously the Quirks themselves, and of course Andrew Friday, who has done a brilliant job in steering the club in this direction. His own uncle, so it's amazing, Dan and Declan married to the two Friday girls, two brilliant ladies, so Hazel and Olive. So huge connection there. This has left an indelible imprint on us all. We all know, an only son, two brilliant sisters, but for the Quirks to continue, with their concern, we all remember the Cormac McAnallen thing. Now we have the situation on our own doorstep in the Field of Legends in Simple Stadium for Dylan to lose his life. So I think a great character, larger than life figure. Came into the dressing room last year after qualifying and graduating as a heavy goods electrician. He said, lads, I'm a heavy goods electrician now, and I can't even change a plug, my mother says, So he was one of those great characters and larger than life. And, a huge testament, I suppose, to the Quirk family, but particularly to Dylan himself, is that now Clonalty pitches, and I'm sure TJ and the lads have been in Clonalty. Fantastic setup there with stands and pitches and all weather and ball walls. They're actually going to name the park after Dylan. It's going to be called the Dylan Quirk Park. So that's the imprint he left, winning under 21 medals, winning senior medals at a very young age with Clonalty Rossmore. And his legacy lives on. And I think that's what the Quirk family are so proud of. And the fact that they are continuing with this, it's a huge project. And they are going to see that it's going to be a huge success. And who better to play in that game than Tip and Kilkenny on the 19th? There's no such thing as a challenge match, as you know, with Tip and Kilkenny. We might find out more about the teams that day, lads, than we will in the National Leagues. But I think everybody knows that we will give it our best support. And thanks, lads, for yourselves for publicising it and giving it the credit it deserves, because it is something that will be a huge success in my opinion.
Yeah, well said, Keane. And if I said there, lads, curling and camogie players, I mean all GA players, and as the big bowl Dan said, I think this week, he said if we can save one life, it would make it for us. And I think that's a measure of the quality of the people that are involved here, and we wish that, and we hope everyone will throw a couple of bob at the GoFundMe page. If you can't get to the game, you can get to the game as well. I think that'd be great. And the best of luck to everybody involved there with that. It's a magnificent cause. That's Fogras. I know, TJ, you'll probably have 14 now. There's how many fundraisers on around Limerick there?
I know, Joe. I'm actually very, very late. I'm going to just talk on two little points. First of all, the first Fogra I'm going to say is for actually a Tipperary club, believe it or not. Ken will know about this, that Upper Church Drumban are trying to get a second pitch up and running there, and they have a big fundraising draw going on at the moment. And for our agriculture, our farming community out there, they have a big draw on the 4th of March for a brand new John Deere tractor. I think about €100,000 worth there, Marco, if you wanted one for your up-and-coming farm. Tickets are just €50. They're obviously in mid-tip, huge fundraisers to try and get a bit of land to kind of maybe get a second pitch to their club going places, football and hurling in Tip there, big area. So just to give a plug to them, so you can log on to Upper Church Drumban, join the draw there, and you never know, you could be driving away in a brand new John Deere. As all the farming community out there will tell you that like a deer. That was one. The second one isn't really a Fogra. I was actually late to the party here, Dalo. I only got to see Laker Gale, Joe Canning, the night before last. Just a hat tip to Joe. I suppose it's just when you see it all put together, the number of incredible scores the man got, and just the value of a free taker and what he did to sideline takers over the last number of years. Huge legacy in the game. What a player. And just like Mark said about DJ Reid there a while ago, I think that there's no doubt about it. If the all-time great team was being picked, there's no doubt Joe Kenning's name will be mentioned. For me, I suppose the greatest player will always be a difference of opinion, and we'll all have our own views on that. But for me, I think that definitely Joe Canning, what I've seen in my time, was definitely the greatest striker of a ball, left and right. I don't think of anybody that that was sweeter. Unbelievable. And from an early age of 15, what he was doing with his club, Galway, the expectation, just kind of a different insight too about the pressure and, maybe the drive to get the All-Ireland. Great to see him win the All-Ireland. But all I say is today, what Joe Canning has done for hurling over the last 20-odd years, incredible player.
Yeah, the Prince of hurlers, there's no doubt about it. I'm really looking forward to he's in this on the game. Set up. He's probably the only addition to the hurling side of things. But I'm mad to spend an old day with him in RT now. They can be long enough days because you're waiting for the night time, but you really get a chance to get to know lads. And wouldn't have known Joe that well. We'd met each other obviously on and off. But he's a great addition to the Sunday game crew, I think, and be dying to get his insights and his takes on the various ways of attacking, defending, ultra defensive sweepers, all this stuff. I'm dying to get into all that. Marco, have you a few little Come On Racing AGM, Marco? We go Come On Racing for a couple of minutes. We are late on time, but look it's a huge time for us. It's an exciting time for us. We have an AGM coming up. We're expanding the whole thing. And I think, everyone that was involved last year, the ones of the 500 people, our renewal is coming up. You're going to have to be getting in your renewal. We're leaving it at 200 quid. Incredible. How we're doing it, I don't know. Donald Morrissey is looking after the books, so in fairness, it's so much to look forward to, I think, this year with new horses on board and Katie Tay back in training.
Yeah, well, I suppose it was something that the people and the listeners of the podcast here were crying out for, and it took us a bit of a while to get up and running, but we managed to squeeze our way into two powerful yards in Willie Mullins and Jim Balders, and we're, I suppose, delighted to announce, in fairness, that TJ has been a huge help as well on getting a couple of new horses into the stable in Willie Mullins. So we're going to have 3 fillies in training next year with Willie, and there's an AGM for members only at the moment on the 20th of February. That'll be online, and I suppose the big message is, look, for the people who are renewing their membership, we are updating the website, and hopefully we'll have a renew button on it, which will save all your personal details from last year. So if you're a current member, don't pay your membership at the moment, which is an unusual thing for FNJ to be saying, don't pay the membership, right? Because we're hoping to make it very easy that you'll only need to have your mobile number and your email address, and you just collect your €200. For new members that want to join, I think the website is available. I think if you just Google Come On Racing Club, you'll be able to go in there, pay your €200, and you will get your membership number. So that's what's there at the moment.
Will you train me in, Mark? You will. You'll train me in. You'll train me in, Mark. A rookie like me, you'll train me in.
We'll bring you on, Ken. We'll be delighted to have you.
If he got 200 quid out of your namesake, Brian from Kilkenny, he'll get it out of you.
Good stuff.
I tell you, we all year long, Ken, right? We embarrass him into it at the end of the year to give the 200 quid. So, in fairness to Hogan, now whether he renew the membership will be a big one, I suppose. But look, just to reiterate,
he enjoyed Corn Park.
And I suppose TJ, we would have always said the racing club is going to be bringing you to places that you've never been, introducing you to people you've never met. And we had a magnificent day in Kilkenny when Katie Day ran in the listed bumper, and the form of that race has been really good. But when you have 100 members stayed in Kilkenny that night, and 20 people from Willie Mullins's camp came down to join us, it was a really successful thing. It's not a money-making thing, but just to reiterate it, it's a bit of fun, it's a bit of crack, it's bringing people in from all over the country. Dalo, I'm sure the couple of nights you were there, you really enjoyed it. And with a bit of luck, you never know. Like, the ambition will always be to get a winner in one of the big stadiums. But like for €200, all in, no further costs, and you feel like an owner when you go into that parade ring and you see your colours and you see your horse running around. And like, I go back to your friend Richard Stapleton. We went to
Tipperary.
But like tonight we went to Tipperary to see Little Ratas finishing second, and his wife and children came because Richard was a member, and she got more crack out of it than anything. And she needed to join. She wanted to be a fully fledged member going away from the races, and that's what it means when you feel you are one of the owners in that racing syndicate. So
yeah, and
look, it feels exciting.
Another great one, Marco, was Inda McAvoy, the journalist, sister coming home from New York for KT's listed bumper run, and loved it, had a great day out, and so it's just, and then Galway then the last two runs of Purple Gown and Little Ratas for us anyway, two newbies from Jim Bulger, just to add that as well, coming along. Yeah, that's so exciting as well, and we're looking forward to winners this time round on that front. But being above and on student day, just lucky Landers you were able to get us into the owners and trainers restaurant, because we were the oldest fogies up there. We enjoyed that day as well. We had a great old day, the three of us.
We did, with a great day. And Kevin Manning, after 40 years in the place, he retired that day. We met him in the parade ring and congratulated him and thanked him for what he's done. He said, the only regret I have in life is that I didn't ride a winner for the Come On Racing Club now. Thanks, Kevin, and to wish him all and look.
It was a bit telltale though for Little Ratas and Purple Gown that he announced his retirement before he rode the two of them.
He did want to go out on a winner in fairness, and he got it.
The story clear, he did his best, like, you know. But lads, that's so much to look forward to. Mark, I know you wanted to, and we will try and get a link up, lads, connected with this page, the kind permission of the Irish Examiner. Paudie Palmer tragically passed away. Mark, he'd been through his battles. He was a great GM, great commentator, much loved, I think, down there.
I tell you, Paudie was a breath of fresh air, I'd have to say. As you say, like, he'd beaten cancer and stuff like that. And I remember the time when it was announced, and he wasn't great, but by Jesus, he battled it and he'd beaten it, and he was back on track as well. Like, you know, so it's just tragic, you know, that he's lost his life, and, you know, to his wife Colette and his kids Emily and Claire, you know, on behalf of all of us, like, we extend our sympathy. But, you know, every time we went to do a commentary and Paudie was there, he'd be laughing and joking, and he'd have a bit of crack. But one thing that sticks out in my mind is a commentary he did way back in football where Clonakilty, he says, if this crowd will win a county, he says, I'll walk Clonakilty to the city. And what happened? Clonakilty won the county, and in fairness to Paudie, true to the man himself, he went on a big walk. But, you know, he's a huge loss to GA, huge loss to his family, his community, his family and friends, and we'll miss him a lot. Like, and, you know, just talking to a lot of the lads that worked with him down through the years, every one of them, he was a friend to us all, like, you know, and he's a really big loss. And we just, you know, I can't say it loudly enough, like, you know, that he was a much loved commentator, but a much loved friend and a confidant as well. So, you know, to Colette and Emily and Claire, you know, just to extend our sympathies to them.
Yeah, and rest in peace, Paudie. And I just want to mention one man, he wouldn't be known out there, but his month's mind was on Sunday. A great friend of mine since I came to West Clare, Joseph Josie, affectionately known, or Acro, the odd few people could call him. I got away with it. Great Shannon Gales man, great GA fanatic, lads. The crack we used to have, and he'd make you put away the phone so you couldn't Google anything. And the questions like, who refereed the 1980? You know, this, like, the biggest tribute I can play to Joe, passed away a month ago, as I said. We saw him off well here in Murty's, I have to say, on New Year's Eve. Lovely family as well. All here at the weekend. When you own a pub or work behind a bar, you know, and it could be a quiet time, it could be middle of the week, you know, some pubs not even open now, but a Wednesday or Thursday, and Josie you wouldn't see him for half the year because he'd just give it up. He'd do 3 months off and then he'd call to you most evenings. But the biggest tribute I can pay to a person nearly is when you'd hear the door opening and you turn around and you'd see that face, you're lit up inside the bar and you're working and you're probably on for the next 8 hours. And that's the, you know, some people who come in, you would actually be going, oh, there'll be time for someone else to come in, so to break it up. If there's no one there for a half an hour, and Big Acro came in the door, you're lit up. He could talk about absolutely everything, and God be good to him. He'll be missed here around. So I think that's it, lads. We've gone over time. Great show, back. Great to have you, Ken. Looking forward to having you all year.
Cheers.
Get out there and support your teams, lads. The league is back. The big stuff is back. And mouth-watering games, especially, I suppose, I have to say, I suppose the match in Leinster, Dublin up as a Walsh Cup will be huge as well with the crowd, and Wexford Park will be rocking. But Cork should be really, really a hotbed tomorrow night, and looking forward to looking over G in the soft seats, the two of ye, cosy arses, and off to the Dublin Racing Festival the following day, and down to Clonmel then for real sport on Monday. Over and out.
Cheers, lads.
A grain of rice is going to tip the scale. Just remember that, lads. There's a small bit of a needle there.
Now, come on, Mayo, you've got to get Andy Moran into the game. Our mission was to show that we're no longer the whipping boys of Munster.